All right, let's talk about Facebook, because during the show yesterday, there was this Capitol Hill hearing. We had a Facebook whistleblower. And as I said yesterday, it kind of sounded good. She was saying they're doing all sorts of things. They're manipulating us in all sorts of ways. And they're making us all angry. And Western civilization is collapsing because of the like button and all that stuff. And it was a bunch of stuff that we kind of knew and we all sort of can see. And we know this stuff isn't making us happy. Like, we open apps and we're all angrier than before, like something ain't right. We all kind of know that. But then the hearing started taking a turn because she suddenly started prescribing things for the government to do. And that doesn't really sound like a whistleblower. A whistleblower would be like, here's a bunch of info. They're up to bad stuff. That mean Mark Zuckerberg and those big tech guys. Here's the stuff. I'm at a hearing. But suddenly she started saying, but this is what you got to do about it. That's a very different thing. Well, now the story's starting to change. First, we've got a little bit of video of Frances. Is her name Frances Haugen? Is that right? Frances Haugen.
Facebook has demonstrated they cannot act independently. Facebook over and over again has shown it chooses profit over safety. It is subsidizing, it is paying for its profits with our safety. I'm hoping that this will have had a big enough impact on the world that they get the fortitude and the motivation to actually go put those regulations into place.
Okay, so you can see she's sort of saying there's some bad stuff here and maybe there's some ways we can deal with it. All right, so again, it doesn't sound like that awful. It's a little weird, whatever. Now we've got some info from the Daily Wire here on Haugen. Haugen suggested that Congress could make Facebook liable for promoting content based on engagement rather than on accuracy or any number of factors. So that's just her opinion on what maybe Facebook or what the government in essence could do. Haugen, quote, has a record of donations to far-left Democrats and a history of raising issues about purported bias while at previous employers. She is working with Democrat operatives to roll out her complaint and has the same lawyers as the anonymous Ukraine whistleblower whose allegations led to Donald Trump's impeachment, but who reportedly turned out to be then Vice President Joe Biden's top advisor in the country. Okay, now this is starting to get a little weird. The Daily Wire continues, she's also represented by a company called Bryson Gillette, helmed by a raft of Democratic operatives who are providing Haugen with strategic communications guidance and helping run what one Republican called an incredibly well-orchestrated communications campaign, the Free Beacon reported. Burton is on the board for the Center of Humane Technology, which has waged a policy war with Facebook. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki worked at one point with Bryson Gillette, with the Center for Humane Technology as one of her clients. Okay, so this is sort of interesting. We're getting a sense here that maybe she is not exactly just some average employee at Facebook who had some concerns. And by the way, when you suddenly end up on 60 Minutes a few days after, like, these things don't happen by happenstance. You know, like the way the industry works, if you're going to get on these TV shows, there are publicists involved, right? Like, I had a book out, like, publicists get you on TV shows or can't get you on TV shows. For example, when my book came out, I was able to get on every Fox show. I was able to get on every sort of center-right thing, but my publicists at Penguin, the biggest book publisher out there, could not get me on any CNN or MSNBC shows because the things that I talk about are against the narrative that they want out there. I'm using that as an example because she goes, okay, Facebook is bad, government better get involved, and then next thing you know, she's on a major news magazine show, 60 Minutes, and it's like, oh, so what narrative, right? Like, I know you guys get it, but this is the idea that we've got to get across to our friends who are confused about why we are on this slow descent to hell. The mainstream machine crafts a narrative very carefully. This is how they launder the lies. So she says something at a hearing, right? Then it kind of works its way up to 60 Minutes. It becomes sort of mainstream zeitgeist. Then we get more politicians suddenly saying, okay, we should censor these things. And of course, the irony is I'm not sitting here telling you that Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and the rest of them are so great. They're pretty awful. They're pretty awful. Imagine if you had a problem with your Gmail account. Is there anyone you could get on the phone, right? Absolutely not. Twitter banned me back in July for saying that vaccine mandates were coming, okay? These are horrible companies. And at some level, I pity them because they became too big and they're run by leftist incompetent morons because they believe more in diversity than truth. And that is going to create a situation where you're going to have a lot of bad things happening and a bunch of people at your companies who don't know what to do. But none of that is an excuse to then be like, okay, government, only if the government could now censor Facebook more would be the answer. But that's what the machine wants. The machine wants more censorship on these platforms. And that's why I've been saying for a while, we have to be careful what we ask for. Section 230 that offers these big tech platforms protections so that they can't be sued for the content that goes on their platforms. Once you revoke that, which I understand the inclination to revoke it, okay, we're gonna revoke that, they don't deserve any protections, but then what will they do? They will suddenly be like, oh, we have to censor more stuff because we don't wanna end up in lawsuits. That's why this whole thing is so freaking messy. Well, Mark Zuckerberg, who is the chief Cylon droid over at Facebook, he responded to some of the comments made during the hearing yesterday. This is from The Hill. Mark Zuckerberg responded to testimony a Facebook whistleblower gave to Congress on Tuesday. If we didn't care about fighting harmful content, then why would we employ so many more people dedicated to this than any other company in our space, even ones larger than us? I don't know what company is larger than Facebook, but okay. If we wanted to hide our results, why would we have established an industry-leading standard for transparency and reporting on what we're doing? He went on to say a bunch of other things like that. Basically, like, we're doing everything we can. I don't know exactly how evil Facebook is, but I know the government's evil. And I know that the more the government gets involved, the more they will suppress thought.